Angela, did you want me to walk us through the agenda and the action items today, or did you want to chair this meeting since Amy and Christine are out?
Go ahead. Yeah, I think you've got it.
All right. Well, I will, call this meeting to order. Forest Health Council Committee on Leveraging Resources. It's September 11th, 2023. And I'll just start with roll call. Christina Bury, she said she was out. Commissioner Clyde Church, Bond Jones or proxy. I see you, Kirk.
Yep, Kirk's here.
Okay, great. Katie McGrath Novak.
Here.
Hi, Katie. Amy Moyers, excused for maternity leave. John Ring.
Morning or afternoon.
Yeah. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally, Selvin White Skunk, and Brett Wilk.
Hello.
Hey, Brett. So I think with the new bylaws that we passed in the last council meeting, because Amy's on maternity leave, does that mean she doesn't sort of count towards the council? I'm just trying to think if we have quorum. So if Amy counts, we don't have quorum, but if we kind of pull Amy off of the roster while she's on maternity leave, then we do have quorum. So am I interpreting that right, Angela?
I mean, this is technically not in the bylaws, but that would be how I would interpret them. But I will open it up to folks on the committee. If you're in broad agreement that you think that's how it should work, then we can move forward. If anybody has any opposition to that, then we can not make any decisions this meeting.
I do not have a preference personally.
I think this is a special circumstance. It shouldn't matter. Just me.
Anybody feel otherwise?
I guess the only thing is we voted that the person on leave could send a proxy. Is that right? So I don't know if that means that like are they expected to send a proxy? Is it just an option?
It's a good memory, Katie. Okay, well, and the other thing we need to do, we need to check with the AG's office about what should count under different types of leave. So we should have that conversation with them, which leads me to wonder, just looking at the agenda today, if other than approving minutes, and because Christina's not here, I mean, I suppose you could do the committee chair vote anyway. I wonder if this meeting is just conversation and if we leave votes till next meeting.
Yeah, I'm fine with kind of either if we want to play extra cautious and wait till next time. I guess I'll.
You don't have to do that. I'm just giving you options.
If Christina is not here, I'd be happy to work with her and you to like make the next meeting happen, since we don't then have a chair. I think I'm okay, and there's been lots of email traffic about nominating and voting on a chair, so I feel like the rest of the committee is in the loop and had lots of opportunity to respond. But I wasn't present for the last conversation about bylaws, so Katie's memory seems like where it's at.
Maybe it would be nice to have Christina be on while she gets voted on.
I don't think there's any harm in waiting for any of these action items. If people feel like we want to, just vote on the chair at the next meeting. We do have all the next meetings on the calendar, so there will be a meeting in October.
Do we have to, as far as transparency, do we have to like officially approve the minutes before you can post them on the website and all that and the videos?
The minutes have to be approved before they can be posted, but the videos I already have up for those past meetings. So that is like one sort of hold up.
Yeah. I don't know, just to move us forward, I say we vote on the minutes and sort of get those out into the world. And then we can decide to hold off on Christina or not, but I'd be fine on voting on that as well.
Okay. It sounds like
Yeah.
at least. Go ahead, Kirk.
I was just agreeing with Brett. We're good.
How about we move forward, and then Courtney, you can double check that our actions were actually meeting quorum afterwards and just confirm.
Okay, that sounds great. So then can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 12th, July 10th?
I never get to motion, and I will motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, all in favor? I'm like, I'm trying to do what the chair does.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes passed unanimously or are approved unanimously. Okay, great.
We have an official quorum breaker.
Welcome, Jody. We were just discussing with our small number if we were at quorum or not, but we're happy to have you here, and now the discussion we can move to the side if we have full quorum. We just approved the meeting minutes from our last two committee meetings, so now we'll move on to voting for the new committee chair. Christina Beery nominated herself in our last meeting, and we've given people the opportunity to nominate themselves via email or reach out to Angela and I if they're interested in taking on this new position, and we haven't heard from anyone. So I don't know if you guys want to have any additional discussion about voting on this now, or if any of you all want to nominate yourselves. If not, we can welcome a motion to appoint Christina Beery as the new chair.
I'll make that motion to appoint Christina Beery unless someone else has a burning desire.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Any other discussion on this point? Okay, can I have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, wonderful. So Christina Beery has been approved to be the new chair of the Leveraging Resources Committee. So the next item on the agenda is mostly a discussion to see if this committee, and maybe we will want to talk to the committee about this again when there's more people present, but one of the directions for the Forest Health Council is to develop a 30-year vision for, I think, for all of Colorado's forests. I could look up the exact language while you all are discussing, but Angela and I were wondering if now that this forest health planning guide it's still going to be something that this committee is working on, but a lot of the work is also going to be done by a consultant. If the members of this committee would like to take on or lead the development of this 30-year vision. So we just thought this was an idea. Other options are, another committee could be formed to do this. It could be something that the council works on together throughout their regular meetings, or it could possibly stem from this committee. So just wanted to open it up to see what people's thoughts were.
I'll start. I'm looking for my hand to raise, but I think, oh, I know where Brett, is that the, for this committee or the other? I think this would be a great discussion for the full council to have and kind of get a really high level overview of where they'd like to see this go. And then maybe it can go back into the subcommittee for further work. But I think that'd be a great discussion to have for the full council about, we've been doing all this immediate stuff, but what kind of get kind of that high level input from everyone about what they're thinking about this, and then take all of the input from everyone about that high level and then bring it back down to this, to the full council, the subcommittee to kind of work on kind of a direction after that. I think that would be kind of an interesting thing to have the full council's input at the beginning. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, Courtney, just sort of how this came up on the agenda, and is it a big priority or a need that like Department of Natural Resources or the state or someone is asking for, or sort of how are you hearing a lot more, or how did this kind of come about? I know it was ranked in the priorities in our voting as a council and somewhere in the top third or something, I think, but is there any context on sort of?
So Angela, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that we've been hearing from Dan or Director McCombs, or Director Gibbs or Director McCombs, that this is something that they needed to see, but we just didn't want to let this get sort of lost, especially as other priorities are coming up. Since this one was statutorily mandated, we want to make sure we can report progress on it at some point in one of our reports to the governor and the legislature.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, we should look at that, Courtney. I think it may have come up in the top tier of council priorities that folks voted on last year, but we should look at that. So don't quote me on it.
Okay.
But exactly to Courtney's point, you know, we are seeing that some folks on the council only have 3-year terms, and those third years are coming up next year, believe it or not. And so I think we wanted to start to have that conversation about whether this is something, this, you know, statutory directive is something that folks want to give time to in the coming year, and to what extent it's a full council conversation versus something the Leveraging Resources Committee might want to work on.
So Angela, if I can ask a question, and I'm sorry, oh, there's the front, I see it, sorry. Raise my hand. When you say 3-year terms, is that remind me, because I have so many boards and commissions that I work with or on, is it only one, you can only serve on one term, or is it multiple terms that you could do multiple terms?
Yeah, I remember you were asking me that before. I think the statute is silent on that. So let me ask our AG's office folks and sort of our boards and commissions experts what their guidance is.
So I think that's important, especially when it's just getting rolling. If we all of a sudden flipped everybody over and then we kind of have a whole new, you know, a lot of the historical work might be lost. I'm just curious about that. It would be, because I'm hoping to get, you know, a second one, just because I feel like we're just finally gaining some traction and seeing some things move forward. So it'd be great to have that kind of clarified. So.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat with Jody on this. I think this is a full council thing. They need to direct it to a committee to be done. I think that's the route we should go. I mean, I have no problems working on it, but I feel like it's more of a full committee or a council decision.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I'll just voice the same thing. I think talking to it with the full council would probably be better. It seems like this is a really tall ask, and I imagine there would be some people who would be pretty passionate about this, and it seems like we should have a kind of a plan in place for how we're going to get different voices from around the state in on something like this. So I almost feel like maybe it should be its own committee. But in any case, I think definitely the full council should have an opportunity to to put input into how we go about doing that. And then if more people end up wanting to join this committee, if we take it on or whatever, I just think it's a really big thing to ask for. And so we should have a lot of voices in the early phases.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I do think our conversations around the forest resiliency planning guide and then what I shared to the forest tracker, but has been a conversation here of just tracking things that are going on, sort of build the foundation for what is that 30-year vision, might look like, or how do we get there? How do we attain it? That's what the language says.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of questions too of like, how much does this a conversation just within the council, or I could see it being the council starting something that becomes much bigger and gets input from people all across the state, and even beyond, sort of thing, or not, or maybe it's more internal. But.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm hearing consensus that this is something that needs to be sort of decided at the council level, how this planning or the 30-year vision will, like what process we'll go through to get to the vision and who will be involved and who's going to sort of take the lead. So we'll put this on the agenda for the October 25th meeting, full council meeting. As a committee, would you have an interest in working on this, or that's something we shouldn't even touch until after hearing from the full council? I heard John said he'd be happy to work on something like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the committee working on it can be an option, that the full council can consider amongst, other things that they come up with.
But I think what Kitty said too, I think it has to be, since it's such a tall order, I think it has to be almost a new committee, to be honest with you. I mean, because it's going to take a while and it's going to take a lot of input. It's going to take some work. So I think it should probably be its own committee to get that done.
Okay.
It also is a good point that if a lot of people have 3-year terms expiring, like we should just time it accordingly. Like I know my 3-year term just started, so we have some people where there's already been turnover, but probably the majority of the council will either be renewed or turn over. So if there's not a chance for renewal, that could be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good flag, and Angela and I can have an answer to that question for the meetings in October, so everyone can have a better understanding of whether or not they'll be on the council in a few years. Any other thoughts on the 30-year vision? Okay, I think we have a good plan to discuss it at the October 25th meeting. So the next item on the agenda was to discuss the Forest Health Planning Guide next steps. So where we are right now, we have a draft. I believe the latest draft is from July. And we had the administrative recommendation that the Colorado State Forest Service provide funding to hire a consultant to turn this outline or draft into a full resource with ongoing collaboration between the Forest Health Council and this consulting group. I'm not sure of the next sort of administrative steps. Angela, are you familiar with maybe like the RFP process or the next steps of hiring a consultant to do this, or if there's other steps before that?
Thanks, Courtney. Sorry, I'm eating my lunch. So I'm not familiar with CSU's specific procurement process for contracts that are under 50,000, which I think is this case. So let me talk with James about that today. It just makes a difference whether, or actually, Brett, I'm sure you are, and maybe Katie is. Do you know if it has to go out for a competitive bid if it's under 50K, or is your cutoff different?
Well, I'll pass that to Diana Selby in a minute because she probably knows best since State Forest Service is holding it. But my question before we even get there is, I think the language said, have the State Forest Service use existing resources and or hire a contractor or something like that. And so I'm wondering if conversations have happened within State Forest Service about if there is staff capacity available or what a contractor role would play versus existing staff. So I've put this on the radar of a couple people at State Forest Service who I thought might be involved, but I don't know. No, nobody's heard anything yet. So have you heard any talk about that, Diana? Or
Yeah, I don't think I've heard some discussion about it. I don't think there's going to be internal staff taking that on. There's not really existing capacity to do that effort. So it likely will be a consultant. And we, as far as our process, if it's truly just going to be the State Forest Service holding the, a contract with or an agreement with someone, then we can go through that process and do that. I guess we'd probably look to this group to sort of help define the scope of work and what that's going to look like prior to it going out. And it will be posted. I don't remember exactly all of the requirements, but we do have a contract manager that we can talk to about like the steps for the amount that it will be. It's just one of those. We still, I think, would look to this group to help develop the scope of work and what we want to have included in that first, before we really get that process kicked off.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. If you get like 5 or 10 bullet points that, what we kind of want it to look like, or what, some of the end game product we want, that'd probably help them out if they go contract. So.
yeah, I think we have that in the latest draft. Has a pretty good outline of sort of where we thought it was going and what the needs are to fill in some of it. It may need some tweaking to fit the format of a RFP and look appealing or more clear about what we're expecting a contractor to do, but I don't think there's a whole lot of work to be done there.
Do we want to pull up the draft to look at it at all, or would anybody feel comfortable being point on sort of pulling out those bullet points that could go into a scope of work? Or do we feel we have to have even like a separate meeting on this with State Forest Service staff?
Yeah, I mean, I could look at it and help pull some of that out if we don't want to do it now. I think if you have it handy, why don't you pull it up?
I have it handy. I can share it. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of the things that would go into a RFP are probably defined pretty clearly in here.
Yeah, I think that's right.
One thing that Amy suggested before she left was that perhaps there be sort of like a State Forest Service liaison and then a Forest Health Council liaison who can coordinate on some of these more detailed decisions, like, oh, what exactly are we going to pull out of this document and put into the RFP? Diana, you said there is a contracts manager at the State Forest Service who might put together the request. Is that right?
No, I mean, primarily works with our procurement office to post, any kind of agreements we're looking into or contract we have, but wouldn't probably be the point of contact on this. So
Okay.
I would say we have to just have a discussion internally as far as who would be, if there's going to be a lead sort of on this effort and who's going to be sort of oversight of the agreement. It would not be the contract.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Do you all think that this introduction and then the introduction on the first page that goes into the purpose, goal, and audience, that's sufficient if we pulled those things out, or there's more information that needs to be created? I have not put together one of these before, so I'm afraid I'm not exactly sure what the parts are.
In the BLM, we can put, like, I put in matrices for timelines and stuff like that. I mean, we just get a clean version of this and put it into the announcement. I mean, from what I'm seeing, you got purpose, goal, you got audience and scope. We've kind of already laid it out. They just gotta. But I like the idea of having a liaison to, like, what are we going to use for the inputs, right? Like, what forest outlet, what are we going to use? I like that piece too. Someone to work with between the council and whoever's doing the contract, Colorado State Forest Service. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'd be willing to be that contact. I've been pretty engaged in this. And I guess I'll just say I don't know where this will go in the State Forest Service, like Diana said, but I've had conversations with Dan Beveridge, who leads sort of a lot of the fire planning there. And he saw a lot of overlap in what he's working on and his staff under him as well. So that's a State Forest Service decision, but just kind of being, that's why I said I've talked to a couple of people. I've talked to him and some others. And that seems like a interest and overlapping with what he was already working on.
Okay. Well, we can definitely put a note in here to make sure that Daniel Beveridge is, gets to have whatever, like, insight or, review. And I'm sure there's many people at the State Forest Service who will end up, reviewing this and making sure that it's aligned with the work that they're doing and the materials that they're putting out as well. Brett, I heard you volunteer to be a liaison for this, which is fantastic. Is there anyone else who'd also like to do that?
I'll also be on it as an more active person, I guess.
Okay, great. Perhaps I can, Brett and Katie, pull you two in on some of the next steps in terms of turning this outline into an RFP for a consultant. And Diana, would you be the best person to talk to about, like, getting a template or finding out what other information we need?
Yeah, you can reach out to me if you have. I think Angela was kind of right on with, like, having a timeline, some specific deliverables, and then once we have that, you can kind of go through me, and once we've internally decided who's going to be the point on this, we can have them, whoever it is, reach out and work with you all.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, you're going to have to give me a minute. I want to make sure I'm capturing all this in the notes before we move on too quickly.
And I don't know if you saw Courtney in the chat. I just said you might want to reach out to Christina and see if she wants a stronger role because she's been really involved since the beginning as well.
I will definitely do that, and I think it makes sense, especially as the new chair. She might want to have her finger on the pulse of what's happening with this. So I'll make sure she knows what we talked about today and sort of what these next steps are. Yeah, I'm wondering if we want to talk about a potential timeline together as a committee, or if we want to save that, for when Christina is back and have more input, but we could create maybe a draft timeline. If you all have thoughts.
What, Diana, do you have an idea on a general, if you get paperwork, is it like a month from today to, as fast as possible, assuming that would be desirable, but, a month to get a RFP out, and then it's several weeks or a month for like people to apply and select it and get under contract? Like, are we looking at 3 months from today to just get someone on board, or what's the general?
Yeah, I don't think it would have to take that long, since we have a scope of work mostly complete. Once that's done, I mean, the process for us, because it's a smaller dollar amount, we won't have to have it posted for, like 3 weeks or however long the longer time frame is. So
Okay.
it shouldn't be that long of a time frame. And then obviously we want to give consultants and others some time to, submit something back. But I think then we would I would say definitely not 3 months. We could do it less than that time. Just depends on how quickly we get everything kind of put together for the packet, and then how much time we want to give folks to respond.
I mean, I feel like once we get the RFP established, it's 30 days. You'd want to give them time to react to this thing, right? So you got 30 days right there. I mean, we could probably go less, but I would say 30 days. And then after you have a list of people that applied, then I don't know, however long it takes to review it and get the green lights. I'm thinking at least 2 months, from RFP output to getting someone on board.
Right. I imagine we might want the final deliverable to be prepared before our next report to the governor next summer. That kind of seems like the last possible deadline. I don't know if there's anything else throughout the year. Perhaps there is a time that's really important to the planning for forest collaboratives, and they'd love to have this late spring, because that's when they plan all their projects, or that's when they're doing, if there's something in their timeline. Yeah, as Angela said, the next Forest Collaborative Summit. Katie, do you have that date for us?
I don't yet, but hopefully quite soon. We put a little poll in our survey, so it's looking like it might end up being just the same weekend or the same week next year, but I gotta tally the results. But we can also plan other special content around this, whether that be listening sessions or whatever need be. But I like that idea a lot. Thanks, Angela.
Seems like if we maybe just assume, to make it easy, that we have a contractor on board by January 1st, which gives us 3-ish. Dan said we could do it more. John was saying allow a little more time. If we say January 1st, like finish it, do you think we can finish it in 6 months by like July 1st?
Would this be somebody's full-time? Would this be like a full-time contract? 6 months seems a little lofty, maybe.
That's up to us, how we write the contract.
Fair
Right?
I feel like 6 months would be fair. I mean, that's me.
I don't feel like this is a 2-year project. I'd rather try and move along sooner than later.
I like the July 1 deliverable day. I feel like that gives us time to, have it for the Forest Collaboratives Summit. We can put it in or attach it to our report to the governor. We can share it with the legislators who are interested.
It's June 30th, and that makes the contracting easier for State Forest Service in the fiscal year. I guess I propose we do that, and as we develop the RFP and we really get into what we want the contractor to do versus what the council is going to do, then maybe it'll push the deadline one way or the other. But it seems like starting with that as something to kick it off.
Yeah, it sounds like a good draft timeline for now, and then we can continue to finesse it as more of these details get worked out. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to the conversation about the planning guide or the timeline, or have any questions to pose?
I mean, so that time frame, if you want someone on by January 1st, I mean, you got to have the RFP out by like November 1st. So I mean, that's coming up pretty quick, that's just, especially in contracting and stuff, you lose people Thanksgiving, lose people over the holidays. I mean, so you take off like 2 or 3 weeks there. So like November 1st, and that's a month and a half away.
Yeah, do people feel like it's possible to get a request out by November 1st? It seems like we have done a bunch of the, at least content work.
Could we maybe have a goal of a draft RFP for the committee to review by our meeting in early October? And then that would give Diana, hopefully we'd have things settled by then in 3-ish weeks to get it through the CSU system and posted by November 1st. Does that seem reasonable?
I think if it was final by then, that we could have it posted by that time. If we had the final.
You're really quiet, Diana. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I think if we have a final by then, if like everyone, if it's a quick yep, we all agree this is ready to go, then we could probably do it in that time frame. So there might be, I don't know if you would want to have drafts sent out before the next meeting for people to review, so that it's not like everyone sees it for the first time in early October and then has to have input. And I just think that might delay things a bit. So it might be worth having some drafts go through email before that date and then feel like it's mostly ready at that point.
Yep, sounds reasonable. I think Katie and myself and Christina, even though she's not here, I'll volunteer to maybe take looks at drafts.
Okay, great. So the action item that I'm capturing is that Brett, Katie, Christina, and I'll be a part of this too, and Courtney will work on developing a draft RFP, have that sent out to the committee prior to the October committee meeting, so that at the October committee meeting, we can sort of finalize that and then Diana will work with with CSU to get that posted by November 1st.
Yep.
Great. Sounds good. Anything else about this planning guide that we should discuss or that's on people's mind? Okay. Well, Brett, I wanted to give you some time to talk about the resource that you sent out earlier this morning. I didn't have a chance to read it, so I thought maybe you could orient us to that.
So the forest tracker.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a quick one pager. So this is something we've been talking about on the council for a while, and myself and Stephanie Mueller at CFRI, as well as some folks at State Forest Service, Amanda Fordham, and then Nick Kotlinski and Rebecca Dennels in their Science and Data Division. And yeah, we're moving forward. I think a couple of things with the tracker were the one pager, we tried to articulate what we are collecting. So it's really focused on completed forest management activities, not going to be used for planned activities, which is sort of trying to create what's the record of what's happened in Colorado as best we can, so that everyone else can build off of that, is our goal. Focusing on sort of woody vegetation management. So as of right now, we're not really planning to include things like targeted grazing or noxious weed spraying or things like that. I totally agree that impacts forest ecology and forest management and has interactions with woody vegetation, but we're trying to create a record of woody vegetation management is sort of the goal of what we've come up with. The timeline is we went public announcement and shared this one pager last week at the Colorado Forest Collaborators Network Summit. And so this month of September, we're going to try and get the word out and get people excited about it. And then our cutoff for data is October 1st or September 30th, actually. So we want any projects that are completed by September 30th. And the month of October is data collection. And everyone has until October 30th, 31st to submit data. All the federal data for Forest Service and then the Department of Interior agencies will just be downloading from their databases. So we're not going to have to get it from each district and each agency. The legwork is going to be getting it from other non-federal agencies, right? So the State Forest Service has all of their data that they manage, but other sort of county open space agencies, fire protection districts, there's lots of other people and organizations doing forest management, woody vegetation management. And so anything the council can do to help share the word, we're kind of building a contacts list right now of who to reach out to submit data. We do have a data submission portal under development where we'll have a template of the sort of required fields that we want people to submit. So all the data submission will be standardized. And there's kind of one place where everyone can go and do that. So maybe I'll stop there. Any questions just on the basics of why, what, and when?
Well, first of all, this is great because that was kind of getting to that one-stop shop thing, where we get all the information in one spot. But what's your plan for getting federal data?
Going to, the Forest Service facts is mostly where that's at, and downloading it from there. And then for the, BLM and Park Service and the other Department of Interior agencies downloading that from the NIFPORS database, or there's a couple other ones that we grab it from too, but mostly NIFPORS is the acronym. Don't ask me what it stands for, actually. Maybe John can.
Don't ask me to. I get in that too, but that's mostly fuels. That's mostly fuel stuff. That isn't actually our forestry data.
Right.
So maybe we have to talk a little bit about how we get you the other data.
Yeah, and we've I'm forgetting, and we've written some of this down. My role is not actually downloading the data, and I'm familiar with a lot of databases, but it's escaping me right now because I don't actually do that. But yeah, there's a lot of different data that we can access. One thing of note is I've had conversations with Frank Falzone, the state forester for NRCS, which is often really tricky data to get on forest management that NRCS funds on private lands because they have a lot of privacy controls on their data. So we haven't found a perfect solution, but Frank is very eager to find a way for NRCS to contribute. And so we've talked about a couple things. But yeah, it'd be great. I think I said I was going to reach out to you, John, a long time ago, and I don't know that I did. So
No, this is awesome. We have the fuels program has a community assistance program, and that does treatments on private land. So, and I'm not sure on how that would work, but I think since we're paying for it to be on to get that work done, we should be able to get that data as well. But that'd be for the fuels lead to figure out. But yeah, this is great.
yeah, any other? I'd love to talk more, and if we have time today, we can talk a little bit about just how we envision using this to once you develop a sort of just picture of what's happening. But any other questions or thoughts on that? I know, Kirk, if you're still there, prescribed fires will be included, but because this data is going to be hosted on the State Forest Service Forest Atlas, there's already layers of wildfire there, and all the other data that's on the Forest Atlas. So that's why I haven't mentioned wildfires, but it will be there and right next to each other so that we can compare, forest management activities with wildfires and see where they intersect and how they intersect. There's other things we've talked about. There's still some exploration we have to do, but the risk management assistance dashboard that the Forest Service maintains, I think it's an interagency, but they also have like forest management that is done during wildfire incidents, because a lot of forest management happens of tree cutting as well as backburning and things that often isn't captured in the final wildfire footprints. So
It'd be good to start tracking it. We don't really have anywhere where every single one is ever tracked between all the agencies and everybody else. It's been a struggle for a lot of years to try to track it down, and private lands in themselves are even more of a struggle of how we track that stuff down. So yeah, it's nice to have it somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where I think working with the State Forest Service, I haven't been as much in the loop on this, but they've been rounding up data from all the state agencies within DNR as well as DFPC, and I don't know if there's others. So there's already some coordination at the state level there that's been great.
Yeah, I contribute to those spreadsheets every quarter. So
yeah, so those kind of efforts we're hoping to build on, right?
Thanks for sharing this, Brett. Yeah, I think we could have a much longer conversation about how to leverage and what to do with that. So I don't want to try to fit it into 8 minutes. I think that could be like a whole meeting.
Yeah, but I think wanted to plant the seed for folks of, if we have this resource, I think there'll be a couple people like John and Kirk who we want to connect with on technical details. But for the most part, we have a team figuring out the technical details. I think the question for this committee and the council is, once we have this, how do we want to leverage it, and how can this help us leverage resources by having this picture. So I got some ideas because I've been thinking about a lot, but now you should think about it too. Yeah, the biggest thing, and I totally blew it, Katie, at the Force Collaboratives Network. I was supposed to, the only thing I was supposed to say is, we need your data. That was the whole reason I went there, and we printed out those one pagers, and I didn't really say it.
It's okay. I was reading the surveys, and a lot of them under like, what resources would you like to see us follow up with? They were like, that thing that Brett was talking about. And I was like, cool.
So yeah, I think that's the big thing, is knocking on doors, publicizing it. Once we have this website where people can submit data, really sharing that so that we can help get awareness out and get data from the partners we know. But I think there's a lot of forest management that goes on that is beyond the sort of typical agencies and actors that that we know about. So maybe not a lot, but there's some, and it could be important to track.
Yeah, we can, COSOP has a pretty big contact list, so we can talk internally about how we can request people take advantage of this too and upload their projects and data.
That'd be great. I don't know if people want to like sneak peek preview, but California just released a dashboard last week. I'll put it in the notes. I think ours will look, we were already thinking about something kind of sort of similar to this, except for hopefully maybe better than California, if that's possible. But if you want to envision sort of what it might look like, and then to think about how we could potentially leverage it with this committee.
Thanks for sharing that, Brett.
Mhm.
I will send this out in the follow-up also, the one pager you shared and this California example, so people can have a better understanding of what the final product might look like.
Yeah, and we have been talking about the Utah, the Watershed Restoration Initiative one is another good example. So there's several good examples out there, but those are, I think,
And Brett,
two we've looked at.
on that, they are available to talk to this group in November if we would like to do that, the Utah WRI folks. So if that's sort of too far out, let us know. I realized our next meeting, and actually, well, I don't know if we have time, Courtney, but the next meeting on October 9th is on Columbus Day. State employees, we are working that day because the 2nd is actually our holiday now. St. Francis Cabrini Day, but I wanted to see if that's the case for everybody else. John, I'm guessing for you, the 9th might be a holiday.
What day was that again?
October 9th, Columbus Day.
But yeah, it's a holiday for me.
Courtney, maybe we should just send out a little survey to members to see if we should reschedule that meeting.
Yeah, it is not a holiday for CSU, so several people on the council were.
Same for the other state agencies, because we're observing the 2nd instead.
Yeah, I can send out a poll to the committee to see who has off that day, and then if there's like a day the following week, that might work better.
And I did get I have some contacts for the California dashboard. If we want to invite them to just share how they've developed it and how really focus rate on how they're planning to leverage what they have. But I think we should talk with our committee chair, Christina Burry, on what the agenda should be for the next one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like we have a lot of things coming up, lots of things on lots of burners, which is exciting. I will follow up with, Brett, you and Katie and Christina and Diana about the planning guide. I'll send out a poll about the October meeting and possibly reschedule that if needed. Does anyone else have anything to put on the agenda for next time or that they want to share before we conclude this meeting? Okay. Great. Well, can I have a motion to adjourn then?
All motion.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The meeting is adjourned. I like this role. It's kind of fun. I feel like the conductor.
Thanks,
You have
guys.
all the power. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks all.